Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Carson, and welcome to Don't Touch the Radio. Now, this is a part of a reboot of my YouTube series, Not So Popular. And this is done with the wonderful help of my friend, colleague, bandmate, sexual partner, Birdie.
I think I'm gone on that one. Hi, hey guys, my name is Alberto Velasquez, also known as Birdie Velasquez. You might have seen me on some YouTube covers and other things of that nature if this guy's has posted on social media. But yeah, I'm here full time now. I'm helping with audio, video, and just giving my opinion on stuff. So glad to be here.
All right. Do you need your notes up?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna pull my notes up. Cool.
All right.
So, Steven, tell us what we're going to be discussing today.
Today, we're going to be talking about the new album from Paramore. That sounds so great to say.
Right.
After Laughter.
What was it, 4 years since
4 years.
self-titled? Oh,
Yeah.
man.
2013.
Dude, well-deserved.
Long time. Long time. If you don't know, Paramore are a rock band from Franklin, Tennessee that were formed in 2004. After Laughter is the 5th studio album from the band, and their first without former bassist Jeremy Davis, R.I.P.
Rest in peace.
And first with former drummer Zach Farrow since Brand New Eyes.
He's honestly a beast. His playing is not that flashy, but it's very clean, and everything he does is super tasteful, and it's really awesome to see that he's back on this project.
He is. I missed him. So I think we're just going to start by talking about the sound, style, and instrumentation here. Paramore started out as an emo pop-punk group from Tennessee, and since their last album have morphed into a well-oiled pop-rock group. And here, very little, if any, of the band's pop-punk roots are showing.
It's gone, bro.
But it feels like a natural progression because the band is still writing solid songs, and instead of just cashing in on whatever's the cool thing at the moment. Fall Out Boy.
Yeah, if that Fall Out Boy record did it is there a record that paired along
it's called
with that?
like Mania or something like that.
I mean, like there's the song, but is there like an album that came out with it just now?
No.
Okay.
It's coming out whenever they
hopefully
feel
never
like is the most opportune time.
Whenever that does come out, we are going to burn it. It might surprise us.
Watch it be like a 10 out of 10.
Okay.
It
Irony.
won't. It won't.
But anyway, yeah. There's definitely a change in sound here, like obviously, especially if you've heard the lead single off of this, Hard Times. And I think it's really interesting because although it is a very different, if not just completely different sound, if you're familiar with Hayley Williams' songwriting and her singing style and some of her deliveries and tendencies in melody whenever she's performing on a song, a lot of it's still there. Like, I hear little tidbits of, like, Riot's stylistic songwriting in this record, but just totally revamped in a very different genre. And it's honestly pretty appealing. Like, I really dig it.
I agree. So on this album, they're going for almost like a new wave 80s synth pop sound and if you heard Ain't It Fun from their last record, they kind of toyed with this a little bit. Ain't It Fun had a bit more of a gospel vibe to it, but similar to that. And the band incorporates danceable drum beats, bouncy bass lines, and lighthearted guitar and synths for a sound that sounds like it's pulled straight from a Johnny Hughes film.
Yeah, it's definitely, like, if you thought Ain't It Fun was different, this is just like a whole nother step in a positive direction, in my opinion. Ain't It Fun was interesting. Like, I did enjoy what it was doing, especially that marimba line at the beginning, and just kind of its, like, overall really flashy and full instrumentation, but at the same time,
it was a little overboard.
It was, and in, like, a really vanilla way, if that makes sense. It was, like, excessively...
just to be excessive.
Predictable, too. It was just okay. That's what it was. It was okay. And this definitely improves upon that concept and makes it something very different at the same time.
So for lyrics, songwriting, and structure, lyrically, I think this is where this album gets really, really interesting. Haley Williams' lyrics here center around extreme themes of self-loathing, completely contradicting the sound of the record. Like, whenever you hear this record, you want to get up and dance. And I always say that, like, I'm not a good dancer, and so if a dance record makes me want to dance, then you're doing it right.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny that theme is occurring in a lot of popular music right now, especially hip hop. Like,
Yeah.
you're over there hitting them folks, and then he's over there saying, "All my friends are dead." Like,
Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, him. No, but it's really interesting. I kind of associate this with the concept of what I've heard people call anti-folk, like with Beck.
Mhm.
He would write really, really interesting kind of pop garage rock acoustic like hybrid stuff, but the stuff he'd be saying would be like the most gothic and gory things ever. And now
Yeah.
this is obviously not to that
Yeah.
extreme, but the comparison kind of still lies there with a really bubbly and almost, I wouldn't say disco, but like just
new wave and just like very, very synth based.
instrumental stuff with really, really kind of heartfelt and distressing lyrics that I feel like a lot of people are going to be able to relate to.
Agreed. Haley has written self-depreciating lyrics before, but not really for an entire record. And she said that in between the last album and this one, for a while they weren't even sure if they were ever going to make another Paramore album. Sad face. But they finally got the gall up to do it. And she said she hasn't been in a great place emotionally. And she also recently got married, so obviously there will be a lot of lyrical themes that are going to change with the music that they were writing whenever she joined the band, she was like 15.
Right.
So like what they were writing back then is going to be way different than what she's writing almost in her 30s.
And with that kind of teenage angst fuel that was happening back then, there was a lot of kind of like ownership and not sass, but just kind of like damn rightness to her delivery and her perspective on hardships and things of that matter. But here it's more of like, it's not necessarily hopeless, but it's definitely
A little more like gloomy.
Yeah,
It's like a rainy day.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. It's like consistently kind of just sad. But the way it's delivered is definitely not that. So to those of you who listen to music for lyrics, you're definitely going to have fun.
You're going to get a lot out of this.
Reading what she has to say in the context of a record that doesn't really portray that instrumentally. But that contradiction is always nice to see because, I mean, if you were going to pair up those kind of lyrics with what you would expect out of an instrumental, you'd either get another pop punk record or you'd get something acoustic and just boring. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad they took this turn, actually.
Speaking of Haley's delivery, oh my God, she has to have like one of the greatest voices in all of rock.
Right.
She just knows what to do.
I used to like roast on her, like joan her ass a little bit back in the day because like on some of her live performances, it was really bad. And that's coming from a guy who can't really sing to begin with. Those naysayers out there, I promise you I'm way worse than I used to be. But nowadays she's just gotten extremely consistent. She's able to reach all parts of her range in a very full manner. She's not always at the top of her range either. There are quite a few songs on here where she's really stretching down there for a female voice, and it's good.
I love it because I can actually sing it.
That is very true. Head voice all the time gets exhausting. But yeah, like it sounds full. It doesn't sound strained, and she's really just hitting all extensions of her range really nicely. It's very impressive.
But one thing I really liked about it was much of the album she's either looking inward toward herself, so like on tracks like 26 or Pool, or she's looking outward at the world, at the way that the world sees her and the way she sees the world, like on tracks such as Rose Colored Boy or Fake Happy.
Definitely. I feel like the perspectives are always at some point at her, but whether it starts at her, within her or outside is always varying, and those perspectives kind of bounce back and forth and really kind of give you a really kind of rounded overall idea of what she's getting at.
Agreed. And one of my favorite lyrical moments on the album happens towards the end of the record with the songs Idol Worship and No Friend. These two songs flow together, and both are about the relationship between band members and fans. For No Friend, Aaron Wise of Me Without You takes over vocal responsibilities and does a spoken word piece about the band, weaving former Paramore lyrics into the track. It's really, really beautiful and a really nice detour before the ballad that closes out the album.
That is a very interesting song, and it is a very, in my opinion, an important piece to include for this record to make sense, like within the context of what's going on with this group of musicians. And we'll get more into how that's delivered and my gripes with it later, but it's definitely an important piece and it has to be there.
Agreed. Okay, so our next category is production, cohesiveness, and overall concept. Now, this album is produced by Justin Metal Johnson. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Frequent contributor of the band's previous album, and he also produced M83's Hurry Up We're Dreaming, so he knew exactly what he was doing with this 80s style.
Definitely. The seamless blend through kind of just your run-of-the-mill indie rock 3 to 4 piece and all this really nice 80s to 90s electronic dance kind of synth and keyboard approach, as well as some surprisingly vintage sounds, especially coming from the guitar, which we'll get to later, just really blend very nicely. Everything, for the most part, it has pretty solid exposure. Nothing really sticks out like a sore thumb, for the exception of one reoccurring instrument and sample that we'll get to eventually on some of these songs. But other than that, really, really clean, punchy, not overbearingly bassy, and not sibilant either. Typically, you have to ride a pretty fine line with some of these buzzier synths and spankier guitar tones because... spankier guitar tones, but because a lot of brightness is at stake whenever you're trying to get a really percussive, articulate sound that is involving a lot of ghost notes and picking that isn't always necessarily playing a fretted note on the instrument or on the synthesizer having a very harsh cutoff. But in this case, everything really seems to smooth itself out, and it just really falls together nicely. It's honestly, production-wise, they've always been a little bit hyped, in my opinion.
They have.
Drums have always sounded a little too in-your-face and powerful for what was actually going on. And this is by no means, like, lower fidelity. It just makes more sense in terms of a mix. It's much more tame and mature, and that is important to me. If you know anything about my punk taste, you'll know that that's one of my biggest gripes with a band called Knucklepuck. Their drums always sound like they're just in an arena and way too just rah all the time. And, I mean, sounds great, but it gets exhausting.
It hurts my ears.
That snare, man. It's a gunshot. But, yeah, this album is definitely not that. Producer knows exactly what he's doing. And with that kind of experience, he just nailed it.
Justin and Taylor did a great job. As he was saying, everything is very cleanly produced, as you'd expect from a major project such as this from Fueled by Ramen. The electric guitar here takes a pretty big step back and mostly plays a supporting role, which sound the alarms. For longtime fans, that may sound like blasphemy, but I think it was the right decision here.
Even then, like, yeah, there was riffage. There was always a lot of just chugga, like, riffage that was just so cool and so refreshing to hear, and, like, honestly, some of the first songs I learned in drop tunings and stuff. But at the same time, like, you don't always want that, especially if you're approaching a sound
this style.
This style, it utilizes a lot more electronic instruments. You got to make space for that stuff. Not everything can take the lead. And with this style, you can use the guitar as more of a percussive element and a melodic element, and not so much a main driving focus of tonality and providing chords. So really, really, really smart usage of the guitar here, and I'll get more into, like, the nitty-gritty in terms of, like, his setup and everything, because I have seen some of it in music videos and in various other media, and it makes sense, and he's making the right choices, and it paid off because it sounds great.
The bass also takes a big step forward here. Normally, they just kind of let the bass go in with the guitars and just meld with that. But here, the bass is allowed to step forward, and even though it's not, most of the time, not playing too much of a technical part, it still does what it needs to do. It's bouncing along and just riding it, and it's awesome.
Yeah, with a lot of these funkier and 80s-ier records, you're really expecting a lot of technical kind of bass rips, and always either a pretty brash and compressed slap tone or a very, very muffled kind of subby finger pluck tone. This ride's a pretty happy medium. It's not overdriven. It's not a Tame Impala bass tone. It's not
Yes.
it's not slapped. It's very clean, and it has both note solidity that cuts through with the low end and really punches you, but it still has this kind of carry on that is articulate, and the picking is, or the plucking is, still very, very present. Like, it's just smooth. And although he's not ripping the whole time, there are moments, and I was seeking for these moments, and in my opinion there's never enough of them, where everything will cut out and bass will just play a quick thing, and then everything will jump back
Just
in.
divert back.
I live for those moments because they're so gnarly. But if anything, it's a blessing that he did it sparingly, and it was just tasteful the whole way through.
Agreed. I'm pretty sure Justin Johnson did at least the majority of the bass work. I'm pretty sure that's what I saw in Genius,
That's
because
awesome.
Jeremy left.
Yeah.
And so
Well, I don't know. Jeremy
I don't really know much of the backstory
great,
there. So
but I don't know how much experience he has within this kind of style. So
agreed. All right, so now I'm just going to kind of hand it over to you to talk about more of the gearier type of stuff.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah. Okay, so
talk about some of the more technical stuff.
before we go into like a song breakdown and like just our general opinions on like every kind of work on the record, I definitely wanted to talk about stuff I've noticed in terms of instrumentation. I'm not a big keyboard player, and I'm not a big electronic music producer, so I don't know a lot of what they were using on that side of things, but all I know is that sometimes I was getting everything as extreme to like a really buzzy, just kind of saw wave synth, all the way down to like a Rhodes keyboard or like a Leslie rotating speaker kind of like Deja vibe thing. Like it was just really smooth, and some of it was a little bit before the time that this record kind of pulls from influence in terms of like style, and it was really tasteful. And I think the gnarliest thing about this record is that the guitar is not squeaky clean. No, it's not. It doesn't have heavy distortion, but it does have this ever so slight, just tasteful overdrive almost all the time. And I don't necessarily think it's an overdrive. I think it's actually the fact that they're using a compressor that isn't so transparent. Because a lot of times you think funk guitar, you think everything is just squashed to perfection. It's super articulate. It's clean as a whistle, like Nile Rodgers. Like,
Yeah.
And that's what people like kind of associate with this kind of music. But this compressor, or whatever it was that they were using to get this really squashy kind of gritty sound, was just providing that kind of balance in terms of note evenness and attack, but it was still adding this kind of warm, gritty color to everything. And every little line that was played, every little percussive 16th note chord pattern that was played, everything just cut through, but with this slight aggression and punch, and it was just really, really nice. I'm glad that they didn't go for like a super crystal clean kind of sound. And the reverbs and echoes and stuff that they're using are really nice too. It sounds like kind of he has like a really taily, high feedback slapback delay that's really quiet, so it kind of just like trails off all the time on harder hits, and everything is just very, very tasteful. It's just a really, really sweet guitar tone.
I feel like they chose to let everything have some character rather than just filling the role that it's like supposed to have.
Definitely. They definitely added their own kind of flair to this style. And like I said, it's not reminiscent of their old punk records by any means with distortion and stuff, but
If you're looking for that, steer away.
yeah. But it's nuanced, and it's not completely perfect in the sense of this sounds a little bit gnarlier than it needs to. And that's just me really nitpicking, but at the same time, I'm glad I'm digging that deep because it gives me something to dig into. If it was just a squeaky clean guitar and one keyboard sound the whole record,
There'd be absolutely nothing to.
exactly. Also,
You'd get so bored.
I'm very sick, so if I keep on coughing and stuttering, it's because I'm
We're
sick.
both recovering.
Yeah. Concerts are grimy situations. So I think now we can pretty much go in and nitpick what we thought about each song pretty quickly. I mean,
Okay,
we don't have
just
to,
kind of run through it.
run through everything. But
All right, you've got a list right there, so
I do.
if you wanted to start.
So here's one thing that I noticed. A lot of bands take their popular single or what they choose as their single before they release a record, and they set it as track 2. And I think that's smart because not only do you have to play through a song to get to the song you're already familiar with, you're also expecting that first song to either match or exceed that second song in terms of how much you like it. So strong album openers are always a really big deal to me. But in this case, Hard Times is the opener. And I think that's actually kind of smart. I wouldn't necessarily call it a cop-out, but I think it's smart because it sums up most of the themes of the record, and it's a solid, if not very good song.
I agree, and it brings a lot of energy right at the start of the record, so it gets you pumped right out the gate.
It just hands it to you. It's like, here you go. This is what this is about. There's going to be some changes along the way, slightly, but like, this is how we're going to start it, and this is how we're going to roll with it. Like, there it is. No apologies. And it's really, really nice. Some of my favorite stuff about this song is the fact that the songwriting is pretty clever, although it's simple. Like, it's not vanilla, I love you, you love me, like really basic like stuff, but
I love
it's
you.
it's still delivered in a really satisfying way that a lot of people will dig, but there's more to it, it's not just like some kind of surface pop song.
Agreed.
At the same time, the guitar tone is, like I was saying, cuts right through, does this weird kind of squashy gritty thing, and then it dies off in a spacious way that doesn't trail too long and doesn't drown out everything else, which is super important.
Sea turtle.
Yes, we have a Chromecast playing a slideshow as a backlight because we don't have a lamp, and a sea turtle just came on the screen, and I'm very fond of it. It looks like a squirt from Nemo. Besides that, so back to what we were saying. I think what I really liked about this was Haley's quirkiness, which you don't really hear a lot in her vocal deliveries and her singing, but you see a lot in like behind the scenes kind of stuff. But and not gonna get to rock bottom thing, like it's so weird, but it's so fitting and just it's really nice.
And like their music videos and like the way they've been dressing, like whenever they go and do like Jimmy Fallon or something like that, like it's so like Talking Heads 80s, and I love it.
Right, it's unapologetic, kind of baggy, and a little colorful, but nothing wrong with that. And it's definitely fitting the style of music that they're making. These aren't bad things, but I call them things. They're kind of small gripes that I have with it, but I think the structure of this song was
and I think a lot of songs.
A lot of the songs on the
popular
record kind of suffer from this. They get a little redundant, and not necessarily in like repetitiveness and how much that section of the song shows up, but rather the fact that the dynamic level is just
constant,
full blast all the way, and only slight kind of instrumentation changes happen to like bring it down a notch. And I'm not expecting like every verse to be whisper quiet and then every chorus to be like yeah, like that's not what I mean, but at the same time it's got to go somewhere. That's what music is. It's tension and release. And some of this stuff kind of just rode that hype wave a little too long to where the hype was no more. And then when it died down, I'm like, oh, this is worse. So
that was not good.
right, exactly. So, and also the bridge wasn't as exciting as I was expecting. However,
me too.
there are some incredible bridges on this
On this
record that
record.
just give you a really nice break from the central focus of the song, and I really appreciate it. In this song, there surprisingly wasn't that much exposure of bass. I mean, it was there the whole time,
Yeah.
but it didn't really get its time to shine. So that is something that you have to dig for in the record. But it did its job. It was riding. It was groovy. And yeah, I didn't really have any like huge gripes with this song. Like this one was solid, and it's the one everybody heard before the record came out, and it got a lot of buzz. And
Got me real hyped.
yeah, a lot of people seem to like it. And if you liked that song,
You're
and
gonna
you
like
were-
this record.
yeah, yeah, you're definitely gonna like the record. And if you were a little bit picky about it, there are brighter moments for those of you
Yeah,
who are like
this
total
isn't as good
instrumental
as it
nerds.
gets.
Right, it gets much better and often, which is pretty exciting. Now to one of my favorites on the record, track
too.
2, yeah, Rose Colored Boy. Wow.
I love this song.
Oh my goodness, this was great. I actually don't have anything negative to say about it in my list of notes here. The first thing I noticed is that it fills up a lot of soundstage. It's just it fills up a lot of soundstage. It's like it just reaches all around you, especially me who uses Sennheiser 598s, which is an open back headphone. It really shines. It has a lot of stuff going on. I'm not gonna say it's like surround sound, like, but like it just takes advantage of subtleties within
Each and
fading.
every space that
And
it uses.
It's just really, really, really nice. Excuse me.
That chorus is so good too.
Oh yeah. The rhythm that all like the I can't think of it off the top of my head because the record is very fresh to me, and I'm not going out of my way to memorize everything. But like the way that every part lines up with what she's singing, and they cut for a split second and come back. Excuse me. Really tasteful, really punchy, and it kind of keeps you on your toes throughout the whole chorus, and then brings you back to a really, really nice groove in the verse.
This is one of the songs on the record that immediately, like first listen, I was like, yeah, this is my favorite.
That's how I was too. I ran through it the night it came out, but I was so exhausted I didn't remember anything, so I had to refresh
yeah,
my
that
memory.
was the night of the pup concert. Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. So I
Yeah,
kind of sat
so-
there and I was just like, I fell asleep to it. But not saying
We
it's
were kinda
boring.
dead.
I was just
we were just dead.
dead, exhausted. But definitely this song just clicked with me immediately. Also, I've noticed this a lot throughout the record and through a lot of the instruments, but there's a lot of sliding to notes, and bass does it
Yeah.
a lot. Just boom, 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 and just like taking the legato way and the tied way everywhere. But there's nothing wrong with that, and the fact that sometimes the bass will do that with any keyboard or synth that's playing at the same time just really adds a linear style that's parallel with other instruments. It's not like one instrument does it and it sticks out and it's like, oh, that was kind of cool, or like
Yeah.
another one does it and it's just like, okay, that did not work at all.
Yeah,
Multiple instruments will do it at the same time to really have that
creates a
continuity.
really cool effect.
Yeah, and it just kind of like just warps into another chord instead of just hitting another chord, and it's really, really cool. Proper dynamic changes in the
In the
structure,
song.
unlike the first song. It's just super articulate stuff happening in the guitar and in the bridge, and it's a really nice change of pace, and it
It
cuts
changes
it back,
up what it's doing a lot.
definitely. And another thing that I noticed is that every chorus in this song added a little something.
Mhm.
Like it added another keyboard riff, it added another layer of lead guitar. It just kept on evolving. So
There's
like
something else to look into every time the
you
chorus
were
comes
getting
around.
the chorus every single time, and always great, but you were always getting like a little bit
Something
of just
extra.
more sauce on top, like every single time. And if you're gonna listen to any song on this record that's not the hit single,
Listen to this one.
Yeah, listen to Rose Colored Boy. I really enjoyed it. You want to take on this next one?
Yeah. Okay, so Told You So was the second single from the record, actually.
Okay, so that's why it was familiar whenever I
Yeah.
went into it. Yeah.
This one, I didn't like it as much as Hard Times, and it's kind of funkier than Hard Times, and for some reason, I don't know, I think it's the verses. The verses just kind of throw me off here.
They're a little.
It feels like they had an idea, but they couldn't quite grasp
It's a little
exactly
too bare
what they
bones.
wanted.
I love what Haley's doing, but
Yes,
instrumentally
same here.
and like it grooves, but it just kind of like
It feels like there's something extra that needs to be there that's just not there.
exactly. And I mean, whenever I heard the first verse, I was like, okay, cool, but like, I loved it, but at the same time, it was like this needs just something
There's
else kind of
something.
hitting at you. Now, my main gripe was that the chorus was lyrically very, very weak.
Yeah.
Told you so. Told me that they told me so. Told you do. Like, come on, man.
It's catchy.
It's
really catchy.
but it's just like you hear what you say. It's just like
once you've heard it once, you've
like
got the gist of it.
freaking cheese ball. Be more creative. But and then my main gripe, and they tried it in "Ain't It Fun" on the previous record. It was a previous record, right?
Yeah, it was previous.
Yeah. Marimba. Marimba is now kind of like a staple in this instrumental lineup. It's not always there, but it is there often. Sometimes I want to say it's a xylophone though. Like I don't see any kind of like xylophone tags in Genius or anything, but like
It all just says marimba or else
there
percussion.
there is a very big difference between hitting a marimba with a soft mallet in the upper register and then hitting a xylophone with a soft mallet in the upper register. Like there is a different timbre to it. And some of these little melodies that are being played on these mallet instruments are very kind of clangy and like hardwood sounding. So I don't know if it's always a marimba, but when it does happen, it's not always off-putting and it's not always awkward. But in this song, the fact that these mallet instruments are playing octaves on some of these lines, excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat. The fact
You're
that
good.
they're just playing together every time they're playing in this song, it just sounds like a steel drum to me. And I don't have anything against steel drums, but because they're really cool. But like that kind
Under
of
the sea.
exactly that kind of texture in the song, all I could under the sea the whole time, and I'm just like waiting for it to go away, back to just like 3-piece instrumental, and it just did not work for this song. There are other instances in the record where these mallet instruments do shine and they do add a cool texture, but in this case, it was not one of them. And it's not the worst song on the record, but it's definitely not my favorite.
Agreed. It's just one that I'm kind of indifferent on.
Right. It's just kind
It's
of
just
there.
there.
Forgiveness. It's the next song on the record. I don't have a lot of notes down on this one, and honestly, I think it's because it just kind of sat well with me. It was pretty stripped down.
It's just kind of a vibe in between.
Yeah,
The
it was
start
a
of the
very
record.
nice kind of break within the record, within the first quarter of it. And it just kind of gave you something to digest and really just kind of vibe to.
Chill out a little bit with.
And the triplets, man, just super tight, hella pocket. I dug it. It was really nice.
It's a solid track.
All right. I think this is Steven's favorite.
It's close to it. Okay, so the next song we're going
Fake
to talk
Happy.
about is Fake Happy.
Woo!
He literally has yes written down.
Because I
Okay.
heard that acoustic intro, and I'm like, all right, I know this is going to, like, do a thing. I don't know if it's going to go into, like, a totally acoustic pause, which I was honestly kind of wishing it wasn't, even though I could have been expecting it, because we just went to a more mellow track. We kind of needed to bring it back up again. And then out of nowhere, it just slaps you in the face with, like, the most groovy thing ever. And oh my God, I loved it. I loved it so much. The bass groove's there. It shifted dynamically properly. It wasn't like full blast the whole way. It wasn't quiet the whole way.
The chorus is so much fun.
It's very, very fun. And instead of this twangy kind of coil-tapped, compressed guitar slapback sound, it goes full-on bridge pickup
Yeah.
overdrive, like full chords. And it
kicks you in the teeth.
yeah, it's like proper rock guitar tone, and it's doing a rhythm guitar thing, and it sounds great, and it's very different from the rest of the record. And I also put a note that says almost everything, because like I literally had no gripes with this song until the ba-da ba ba-da whatever it was on the bridge. Like that was just kind of meh.
I didn't mind it, but
But everything else about this song is like friggin' fantastic.
I like sing-alongs.
It's definitely a sing along. It's definitely super catchy, and it's dynamically impressive with what the guitar just introduced, which is full on overdrive and fuller chords. Definitely more kind of rock approach to the guitar, but definitely maintains the grooviness of the rest of the record in the track.
Agreed. Killer track.
21. No, I'm kidding. 26. 26. Very, very nice change of pace, in my opinion. What do you have to say about it?
I thought it was kind of boring, to be honest.
I thought, this is what I thought. I mean, yeah, we already kind of had a quiet moment on the record, but her vocals are just
Oh yeah.
always there
They're so good.
in the sweetest way, and they're just always forever changing. And I think the biggest asset of this that helped this song was the string section.
Oh yeah, towards the end.
Yeah, it came in occasionally and it would just leave, and it wasn't necessarily linear with structure. It's just whenever she got into it, the strings would appear out of nowhere, like oh, and it really helped things out. And just again, I just put yes. It was a little bit boring to the contrast of the rest of the groups of the record, but what its purpose was and what it was doing instrumentally was just phenomenal.
It reminds me a lot of Good Riddance by Green Day. And so, like, it's a totally fine song by itself. Like, I would put this on a playlist.
Right.
But, like, in the context of a record, I was like, I'm no longer hyped.
Right. And it's kind of meant to put you down for a second and just kind of make you think. And that's another thing. I feel like the first half of this record is way more just than the second half, but not by much. But, like, there's definitely a sadder kind of, that's a word, a more sad
Kind of
turn.
dwindles down towards
yeah,
the
it really
bottom.
kind of winds itself down beautifully, in my opinion. But yeah, next track, cover it.
Pool. This song is actually about her relationship with her now husband. And lyrically, it's really, really cool. And they did some really cool stuff with, like, the synths and everything. It almost sounds like, this probably sounds really weird, but it sounds like you're in, like, a pool, or like there's like a watery vibe.
It's very, very wet reverb, and it's very, very soupy, like soft attacks. Like it's very like mini swells. It's always just kind of. It's never do. For the exception of that bass, that's just always just quarter notes. The whole it ain't even doing nothing cool, and it's just like. Damn, son! Like, oh my god, I got so hyped when I heard this. Like,
he really did.
It just was grooving so nicely, even though the bass wasn't doing much. It was just punching you right when it needed to, and also much better use of the mallet instruments in this song.
Agreed.
It didn't sound so steel drummy, but at the same time, it still added a really nice color and texture and
It gave it the Under the Sea vibe. Watery.
Under the
pool
vibe. But yeah, much more tasteful, and it gave you something else to kind of pick apart at within the sonic space of the song. Also, the verses were kind of just sitting back, but the choruses were so different from the verses in an appropriate way that it just really gave you a kind of like a refresher throughout the song, just to kind of bring you back. Still, again, still a little steel drummy from the mallet stuff. I'm not a huge fan of their usage of those, like, overall, but this is definitely way better. And also,
it's probably the best use of them on the record.
And then there was this one moment, I think it was in the bridge or transitioning either in or out of the bridge.
Oh, the Mega Man sound?
Yes. Oh my god, there's this weird thing where, like, the synths or the keys and the bass together did that slide thing again. It was just like, and then it just hit, and I was like, nah, bro, like Mega Man hopped on that bitch and shot his cannon or something. Like, it was really, really cool. A lot of little just intricacies, and I think the mallets really brought that out to bring in your attention, and then something else would do it, and you'd have to, like, reach within that mix to find that stuff. But really a lot of just little, like, rewards and prizes for digging in.
For deep listeners. Grudges. This is my least favorite track on the album.
Yeah. I mean,
It just feels like it's there just to be there.
There's something up with the way she's singing, not like her singing itself,
Like her
although
voice, but like the phrasing.
yeah, I mean, she did. This was the point where she reached the lowest in her range, and it
Yeah.
wasn't weak by any means, but like just the way she was phrasing lyrics just seemed very kind of sporadic. It's almost like she just figured out what key she was in, worked with that scale, and just kind of like freestyled what she wrote.
She
in the
took a
form of
lesson from
poem.
21 Pilots.
Or,
Burn.
or Big Sean's weak songs. I'm not going to get into that right now, but it just feels really crammed and really forced. You know, it's just like it just seemed like she wrote down a poem and she tried to fit it into a song
The
like
best
loosely.
that was already written.
Yeah, and then she just kind of
Like it feels like the song was written before. Then they put her words in it, and then they were like, "Let's just make
That's
this work."
exactly what it feels like, and not in a mixed sense, but in just like like the way it fits, like rhythmically, it just didn't work for me.
And I mean, it's not a terrible track.
Not at all.
But
it's still a pretty cool instrumental, but
it's
at the
just-
same time, even with their phrasing being pretty bad, the instrumental doesn't really have a lot of dynamic shifts, and it kind of lacks direction. It's just kind of there.
Yeah.
So yeah, this pretty weak song on the record.
Everything else really good on the record really made this stand out as a really weak track.
Yeah, it wasn't like terrible, but within the context of so much like hype, it's just kind of like, damn, that kind of sucked. But not a bad song, just definitely my least favorite so far. Caught in the Middle.
This is also a lot of fun.
Really stripped down instrumental, but it just adds. Not necessarily within structure, but just throughout the whole record.
There's just little things that just keep
Just
getting
keep
added to it.
popping
And
in.
added
It's
to
really
it,
nice.
and added to it.
Bassline is super interesting here. It gets a ton of exposure. A lot of the guitar licks get a lot of exposure as well. They're not always so buried into like the back of the stereo field. Some of them are just dead center, cutting away under Haley's vocals. Very satisfying tempo. It doesn't leave
It's
you
so pocket.
asking for more.
It's that perfect like head nodding.
Yeah, it's
Like
just it's there. You don't want it to speed up. You don't want it to slow down. It's just perfect. And the outro was pretty groovy. Just
Zach's drumming on this was really
oh
good as
yeah,
well.
just like on the ball, super intricate little hi-hat and ghost note work. It really, really tasteful. I liked it. Idol Worship.
This one I like a lot, mostly because of not only the way it plays in with No Friends, but the song itself. Haley is basically taking a look at the way that fans perceive not only her, but also other musicians, and the way fans kind of put them on this pedestal and just kind of worship them as if they're like these gods that can do no wrong, and if they mess up, then like I'm going to stone you.
Right.
And so she's just kind of saying, like, look, we're just humans. Like, I'm sorry it took 4 years to make this record, but, you know, shit happens. And so she's just basically like, we're just people, like, let's just talk on a human level, and I love that.
Right, and I think the instrumental really does a good job of kind of bouncing off the idea that she is not perfect, she is not this big thing, she's just a music artist, you know? And so
I also
one of
love... I also love the play on words and the title between idol worship. Like, it's spelled IDLE. So, like, idol worship as in your idol, but then also idol worship as in you're just, like, idly watching by.
Right. It's just, like, riding it out and just, like, staying in that state of mind when you need to
I love you,
get
Haley.
out of that. But, yeah, I think a lot of the quirkiness that embodies, I mean, I'm taking in symbolically at this point, but, like, I feel like the quirkiness in this song really embodies the idea that humans aren't perfect and they shouldn't be, and they shouldn't try to be.
We're human after all.
Daft Punk. Anyway, but it really catches your attention with these really haunting kind of sounding synth chords at the beginning, and just adding on to that. And the really cool thing about this song is that the tempo is kind of like forward, but the accent within the drums and everything didn't hit until the 3. It wasn't 2/4, so and it really kind of like wrote out its phrases and stretched everything out in the best way possible. Bass was always doing this funky syncopated thing. Again, those slides are there with the bass and keyboards just kind of working together.
You also
Super
liked
awesome.
the quirkiness of like the la la la's in
The-
this situation.
Yeah, like the
as
ba da
opposed to the-
ba's from what song was it? Was it?
It's a fake happy, I think.
Yeah, in Fake Happy. I was just kind of whatever. But the la la la's in this were kind of reminiscent of the start of the record whenever she said that one sentence in that really weird voice.
It also reminds me of Brick by Boring Brick from Brand New Eyes.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely kind of reminiscent of that. And it's just corny and just catchy and really nice. I loved it. The Deja Vibe rotary speaker kind of effect on the guitar was adding this really kind of like keyboardy like color that was really, really nice. And also Haley sits back in this mix. She's not so forward unlike in the other songs, and I think it's really good in context because like
it kind of paints her into the scene of everybody else.
exactly, which is the point she's trying to make.
Yeah.
She's not trying to stick out, so they really kind of put her back in the mix, and that's a really, really smart way to deliver the song. And now we have No Friend.
Which, as I was talking about earlier, Aaron Weiss from Me Without You takes the vocal responsibilities here, and he wrote this poem about the band, and he interweaves former Paramore lyrics, and he just writes a poem from the perspective of a fan. So Idol Worship is from the perspective of Haley to the fans, and then Aaron Weiss writes this poem from the perspective of a fan to Haley.
Hence why I was saying it's very important in the context of the record, and very, very valuable perspective.
And something that I thought about, a lot of people have been complaining that he's really, really far down in the mix.
It's not even like
It's like almost inaudible.
Yeah, you
But,
literally can't hear him.
I just thought that maybe since in Idol Worship, Haley's brought back a little bit to be like within the crowd or whatever. Maybe in No Friend he's brought so far back because the fans feel like they're just like little fishes in this giant sea.
That actually does make a lot of sense. You still kind of need some kind of outsourced
Agreed.
like material to understand what's going on.
I just read it on Genius.
Right. I mean, you still got to go look for it, but like it makes sense in terms of a symbolic thing. And I mean, if they did it for Idol Worship, why wouldn't they do it with its contrasting partner song? You know, but really nice subtle changes that happen occasionally. I'm on the fence about the triplet guitar thing that just kind of reached out the whole thing because the song is straight eighth notes, but the guitar is the only thing that is playing triplets throughout the whole thing. It's a little out of place. It's a risk, but I mean, it's okay. It's not amazing. It's not terrible.
I think it's cool.
It's kind of cool. And now, let's see. Is it Tell Me How or is there one more?
No, Tell Me Now's the last one.
Okay, so Tell Me How, the closer of the record.
I thought your click guitar thing said dick guitar thing. Continue.
Like, really? After that? I'm kidding. Yeah, piano. It is like one of the very few, if not the only instance where it is just a dry grand piano sound, and it is there.
It's really refreshing.
Right from the beginning. And it's interesting because this closer definitely takes a very melancholy turn instrumentally and lyrically, but it is refreshing from all the different synths and electronic kind of sounds that were happening.
To just have a plain old piano.
There was this guitar lead thing that would pop up eventually on the E end of 3 and then a 4 if you count musically. And it was just kind of always poking at you on the right side of the mix, and it was really, really nice. It just grooved the whole way, and it just built the whole time. It was just one big crescendo.
It's a really well done ballad.
Definitely, and it's a solid ending, and it definitely adds like nice closure instrumentally, but it kind of leaves the theme of the album and just kind of open-ended, which I think is appropriate considering if they're going to continue to pursue this sound and maybe put out a record that touches on this kind of stuff in a more positive light, it's definitely a nice kind of
jumping forward point.
Yeah, definitely. But
and I like being depressed, so I like that it ends on a melancholy note.
Right. It's not. This album just isn't predictable, even though this style kind of lends itself to predictability.
Especially nowadays, because everyone's doing the '80s thing.
Right. It really does it in a way that keeps you on your toes, and ending an album on this note is not common. It's not like the most unique thing in the universe, but like it was a good call, and
Agreed.
it was definitely a good ballad. So now that we've done our track by track analysis, what are you feeling in terms of like 1 to 10, 1 to 100, however you want to do this?
Did you want to go and do each category and give our like score for each of those?
Well,
or did you just want to give one overall?
We did discuss kind of like our overall notes of how we're dividing this on.
Because I have mine all
Video.
written down, but I don't know how you
Yeah.
want to do it.
We'll just let you do the scoring.
Okay.
Because I mean, I'm
That
pretty
works for-
much
at
on the
least for
same
this first
page.
one.
Yeah.
All right. So for sound, style, and instrumentation, I gave it a 78 out of 100. I felt that the sound was done really well, and they added their own little flares. But like I said, like we were saying earlier, it's not the most original thing in the world, and a lot of people are doing the '80s thing now, and so it's not the best '80s revival you're gonna hear, but it's good.
Yeah. And quick note, he's going by 100 because the farther up you are within that 10 number range, the closer it is to the next one. So he gave it a 78, so that's like a high 7. Meaning,
Really close to an 8.
Yeah, which 7's like really good, 8 being great. So like it's
Isn't it?
riding that line. And there are the gripes that we have, which is
Yeah.
why we placed it as such.
I don't know if we're gonna agree with this, but lyrics, songwriting, and structure, I gave an 87 because I love Haley's lyrics here, and I found a lot to really dive into and ponder. The structure could probably knock down a few notches. If I took the structure into more consideration, it'd probably be more like an 82.
Right.
But I just really, really loved the lyrics
Yeah,
here.
like even though some of the stuff that she's saying is delivered in a pretty simple manner, it's definitely intriguing and it's a very different perspective.
And you can tell it's coming like straight from
Oh yeah, it's authentic. There is nothing that is like just
fake about
forged or like crafted.
Fall
Like,
out
this
boy.
is. I actually had to cough when you said that, that's why I laughed. But it's very genuine in its delivery. Structure, it does suffer because some of these songs kind of just ride its wave a little too long, but it's solid. It's very, very good.
And then the last category is production, cohesiveness, and overall concept. And I gave that an 85. And the production is done really, really well. They just knew what they were doing, and you can tell. And I feel like cohesiveness, I mean, it all has this kind of 80s new wave feel. And I think there's not really like an overarching concept, but like the theme and everything.
Yeah,
is
I
pretty
wouldn't say it's an
solid
overall
throughout.
vibe because the record definitely does a good
goes
job
up
of
and down.
just shifting.
It's not a Drake project.
No, that's a vibe. That's why he called it a playlist. That ain't no album. That's some background music. But
Anyway.
haters, do what you want. Anyway, yeah, like I think it's a really well put together project overall, and like he said, there isn't necessarily a concept to it. Like there isn't like a narrative or like any kind of like pressing kind of story or returning factor, but it's definitely maintaining what it's trying to say and the kind of the side of Haley's emotions that are coming through, and it's done in a completely new sound to them, not necessarily to the music world, but the fact that it's coming from them and the fact that it was done so well,
And they did it so tastefully.
yeah, it's
And on their first try.
it's exactly
Like
they
it
got
didn't take
the
them
right
3 records to do this.
they got the right people to do this, and yeah, it's really satisfying.
So now for my lasting impression and overall score. Averaged together, that equals out to be an 83.3. So, I mean, that's pretty dang solid.
Right. With 10 being perfection and 5 being indifferent, and a middle 8 is, or 80, is really, really good.
So overall, I said it's a catchy and really fun album, but it also gives you a new avenue for the band to explore musically and give some truly stellar lyrics to dive into from Haley Williams. And in terms of where it stands in the band's discography, for me, I'd say it's right up there with Brand New Eyes for their best. Like,
my favorite is personally Riot, only because I grew up with it. But
I did too, but Brand New Eyes is better.
Brand New Eyes is by far the superior record. A lot more nuanced, not so overly hyped in terms of just everything. But yeah,
I'd say this is right up there with it.
It's you can't really compare because it's a different style. But in terms of quality, this is a great record.
Agreed. There's just so much to love here that's brand new, and so much optimism for where the band can go from here.
I'm stoked. I really hope this isn't like a one-time thing. Like, I really want them to either take this sound again and approach it through a concept, or alter it ever so slightly to incorporate a little bit more of their rock roots, but still blending some of this.
That'd be really cool.
I think that would make it, if maybe better. I don't know.
I don't know.
We can't
That'd
say.
be hard, but
yeah, definitely super solid record, and in the continuum of everything, it's definitely something great that they haven't done in a while, in my opinion.
Agreed. So, anyway, now that that's done, thank you for tuning in and watching us ramble on about music. Don't forget, this is a conversation, and so if you had any thoughts on the record, if you loved it, if you despised it, let us know why down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, tell all your friends about it.
Heck yeah. And we might be putting out these in the form of a podcast for y'all that just want to be able to hear it, because there isn't really a lot to see here, and we are doing this in the form of kind of a conversation review.
I'm white, so I'm bland.
Anyway, if you like this setup and you like the conversation aspect of our reviews and you want to just like give your input, that's the whole purpose of this.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to see more structured and categorized videos, we can do that too. Let us know. This is take one. This is the first time we've done this. It might be rough around the edges, but
so if it's terrible, tell us.
Yeah, like
we won't get butthurt.
Yeah, we're trying to make this a thing
as good as possible.
Definitely. So. But if you dig the whole conversation thing, heck yeah, listen in more often. We're going to be doing more reviews, and yeah, catch y'all next time. And don't touch the radio.
See ya.